The Warriors aren't a championship roster. And with Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green entering a contract crossroads, Golden State could be facing a decision that changes the entire Curry era.
You're a Yaxel guy? Optimism? You're a Yaxel guy?
No, I mean, when you talk about Steph Curry, Steve Curry, and Draymond Green, every year they step foot on the floor, it's either championship or bust. It's no in between. It's no middle ground because you have a Steph Curry who's about to be 39 this year, I believe, and Steph Curry wants to win the championship. Is this a championship roster? Absolutely not. Is it a team that we look up and they'll be in the playoffs come postseason time? I believe so, through the play-in tournament. But again, the Warriors know that it's time to upgrade. It's time to move some pieces. We don't know what Jimmy Butler is going to look like. I thought at times it was too many lows and not enough highs last season when it came to the production from Podziemski. So again, if it was just a team trying to get in the playoffs, then I'll say, yeah, you could be optimistic. But this is a team that's trying to win a title and trying to get out of a tough Western Conference.
Yeah, both Steve Kerr and Steph Curry have basically said it isn't necessarily championship or bust right now. They've been on the record kind of saying that. I'd look at the small forward position. I think Jimmy Butler's awaited arrival potentially in February could, if he can get back anywhere near the form, could change it. But until then, Yaxel Lendeborg's probably going to start. We've talked about it. I mean, it's the appeal of drafting him was the ready-made, contributing wing. And if he can, I don't want to say explode early in the season, but if he can just be like a very capable 35-minute per night guy and they stay healthy, that's the big thing with this team. I don't see why they couldn't float, above water and then get Jimmy Butler back.
I think the one thing when I look at Big Yax is he's NBA ready. He's 24 years old. He is NBA ready. I talked to Mike Boynton in the combine, and the playoffs were happening. He said this young man could be playing right now in the playoffs, and this is exactly why. If you take a look at this is Cam Boozer guarding him one-on-one. He can go through the contact. He can finish at the rim. The versatility in his game is what allows him to be NBA ready. Right here, if he can just do this, playing alongside of Draymond and Steph Curry, to be able to create a shot off the bounce, step back tray in your face, automatic money. If he can do that consistently, now he provides another level of offense. But this right here, he's just a winner. He makes the right play time and time again. Off of the bounce, now can see the floor, playing with the shooter, right? He's going to have a lot of space, a lot of open opportunities for shooters to be able to get wide open shots. I mean, Yaxel Lendeborg, when you talk about an ultimate winner, everywhere he's gone, he has won. He has contributed. He is physically ready, not only in terms of his actual game, but the IQ, the mental side of things. They talk about how immature he is in press conferences and all that. But when he's on the floor, production is always there. And that, to me, is what matters the most. I think he can really help.
But the biggest danger may not be on the court at all. Because behind this roster is a decision that could reshape the Warriors' entire future. And it's coming fast.
Just because we know it'll be a topic of conversation. For example, there's still players becoming contract extension eligible. I think by next week you'll start to see Steph Curry's name come up because starting on the 29th of August, he's extension eligible for his contract. I have argued that it's possible that, or it should be at least considered, and I'm sure it is being considered, that Klay not sign or that Steph not sign his contract extension right now. Of course, if he wants to sign his contract extension right now, he can get 2 years and I think $140 million. Obviously, if that's what he says he wants, you're going to give it to him. But if he doesn't sign his contract extension right now, the Warriors could have over $100 million in salary cap space next summer because he, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond are all in the last years of their contracts, and Kristaps Porzingis' deal is not fully guaranteed. And it's not that I'm thinking that Steph's going to take a LeBron deal, but you're going to get the contract whenever you want it. Why not leave optionality open? But anyway, that we will talk about in the coming days.
The Golden State Warriors have a problem, and it is bigger than one bad matchup, one injury, or one disappointing season. This roster is not a championship roster. That is the brutal reality. Because when you have Stephen Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green, there is no comfortable middle ground. There is no, let's just make the playoffs and see what happens. The expectation is supposed to be a championship. Curry is now 38 years old, entering his 18th NBA season, and Golden State finished last season just 37-45. That is not the profile of a team ready to dominate the Western Conference. It is the profile of a team standing at a crossroads. And the question is becoming uncomfortable. The question is becoming uncomfortable for David White. Are the Warriors building around the final years of Steph Curry, or simply protecting the past? And that is why the optimism surrounding Golden State has to come with a massive warning label. Because the roster may survive the regular season, but surviving is not the same thing as winning a championship. There is a difference between being good enough to reach the postseason and being good enough to survive the Western Conference. And that distinction matters enormously for Golden State. Yes, the Warriors could still reach the playoffs. Yes, if the roster stays healthy, they could potentially fight through the play-in tournament and create problems for somebody. But ask the more important question. Can this team win 4 playoff series? That is where the optimism starts to collapse. Jimmy Butler is still the biggest variable. Last season, he gave Golden State stretches where his presence completely changed the team's identity. But there were also too many stretches where the production simply wasn't consistent enough. And now there is another concern. And now there is another concern. When does Butler actually look like Jimmy Butler again? At 36, coming off a major injury, Golden State cannot simply assume that the version of Butler they need will magically appear when the postseason arrives. And that puts enormous pressure on Curry. Because Curry cannot carry an aging roster through an entire Western Conference gauntlet by himself. But Golden State does have one fascinating piece that could keep this entire experiment alive, and his name is Yaxel Lendeborg. The Warriors drafted Yaxel Lendeborg with the 11th pick, and there is a reason people inside basketball circles believe he can contribute immediately. He is 23 years old, already physically mature, and unlike many rookies, he does not necessarily need years of development before becoming useful. At 6'9" and 250 pounds, Lendeborg brings size, versatility, and toughness to a roster that desperately needs another reliable wing. And that could become critical while Butler is unavailable. The expectation should not be that Lendeborg suddenly becomes a superstar. That would be unfair. But if he can become a legitimate 35-minute-per-night contributor, defend multiple positions, attack closeouts, and knock down enough perimeter shots, Golden State suddenly has something. More importantly, playing beside Curry and Draymond could accelerate his development. Because Curry creates gravity. Defenders cannot casually leave him. Draymond creates passing opportunities. And Lendeborg can attack the space those two stars create. That is the blueprint. But even if Lendeborg works out, Golden State still has another enormous question. Because this team needs more than potential. It needs reliable production. One of the biggest concerns is what Golden State gets from its younger supporting pieces. Brandin Podziemski has shown flashes. There is talent there. There is toughness. There is playmaking. But last season, the problem was consistency. Too many lows. Not enough highs. And for a team chasing a championship, inconsistency is deadly. You cannot ask Curry to generate elite offense every night while simultaneously hoping multiple young players suddenly figure everything out in the playoffs. That is not a championship formula. That is a gamble. And the Warriors already know what happens when they rely too heavily on hope. The margin gets smaller. The losses become more damaging. And eventually, the pressure lands directly on the front office. And that brings us to the most important part of this entire story. Because the biggest Warriors decision may not happen on the basketball court at all. Starting August 29, Stephen Curry becomes eligible for a contract extension. And this is where things get fascinating. Curry can potentially add 2 years and roughly $136.7 million to his current deal. If Curry wants that extension immediately, the Warriors are almost certainly going to give it to him. Why wouldn't they? He is the greatest player in franchise history. But there is another option. Wait. And waiting could give Golden State something incredibly valuable. Financial flexibility. Curry, Butler, and Draymond are all entering the final years of their contracts. And if the Warriors keep that flexibility open, they could potentially have more than $100 million in salary cap space next summer, depending on how the roster and contracts ultimately develop. That changes the conversation completely. Because suddenly, this isn't just, do we pay Steph? Of course you pay Steph. The real question is, when do you pay Steph? And what do you do with the money before then? Because if Golden State can preserve flexibility and use it to build a legitimate championship roster around Curry, that could be more valuable than simply locking everything in immediately. And that leaves the Warriors facing the most uncomfortable decision of the Curry era. Steve Kerr and Steph Curry have pushed back on the idea that everything is simply championship or bust. And emotionally, that makes sense. But basketball reality is different. When you have a 38-year-old Steph Curry still capable of changing games with one shot, you do not have unlimited time. You have a window. And windows close. The Warriors do not need to panic. But they do need to be aggressive. If Butler returns healthy and looks like himself, if Lendeborg becomes the ready-made contributor Golden State believes he can be, if Podziemski takes another step, if Curry stays healthy, then suddenly this team could become dangerous. But that is a lot of ifs. And championship teams are rarely built on that many unanswered questions. So the challenge to Golden State is simple. The challenge to Golden State is simple. Do not confuse making the playoffs with having a championship roster. Because Curry isn't getting younger. Draymond isn't getting younger. Butler isn't getting younger. And every season that passes without another serious championship run makes the next one even more precious. The Warriors have built one of the greatest dynasties basketball has ever seen. Now they face the hardest part. Figuring out how to make the final chapter matter. Because this isn't about protecting the Curry era anymore. It's about maximizing whatever is left of it. Thank you for watching Sport Current. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and share this video to support the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss the latest NFL and WNBA news, breaking stories, game updates, trades, and the biggest moments in American sports. Stay tuned for more updates, and we'll see you in the next video, right here on Sport Current.